He'll mute you. Yo, what's good, fam? It's your boy, Pastor Ramon, aka Pastor Ray. Listen, I am so happy to be with you guys this evening. If you're watching with us, go ahead and let us know that you're here by commenting in the chat. If you're rewatching this after the live, please go ahead and comment and let us know that you're rewatching it. All right. Just say hello. And no matter of fact, go ahead and take this, copy it, and paste it or share it on your Facebook walls, share it with your friends. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and send that link to a couple of folks and say, hey, you should catch this, encounter the well. All right. Listen, you guys know what time it is. All our Wellians out there, we are so happy to see you. I see that there are a couple people on, and I'm so glad to see you on. What's up, Brother Jawan? I can see that you're on, and a couple of other folks. So happy to be with you guys. Tonight is going to be an amazing conversation. We got some folks all over the country who are tuning in with us, and it's going to be dope and deep. So if you're not taking your seat already, someone grab your seat, get in front of your screen. Hope you already got a cup of beverage, whatever that beverage might be, and get ready to strap up your seatbelt because we're going on a journey tonight. Listen, y'all know we live by one motto here: encounter the well, become the well, emerge and share the well. It could be synonymous with encounter Jesus, become like Jesus, emerge and share Jesus. Encounter love, become love, emerge and share love. Encounter light, emerge, become light, emerge and share light. Whatever's good, put it right there. That's the well, because hashtag the well is you. All right. Listen, and everything that we do here leads you down a path. We do believe that there's a path, and that path is the path to the 5 P's. What are the 5 P's? Well, they are passion, peace, promise, power, and purpose. That's right. Passion, purpose, promise, peace, and power. Everything we do should lead you down the path to 1, 2, 3, 4 are all 5 of those P's, because we believe that life gets better once you find any of those P's in Jesus. All right. Listen, We are so honored to be in this. We are in our theme of the month, church, lowercase c. Church died, and I started breathing. And last week we did the suicide note where we talked about, is church still living? Is church still alive? Is church still relevant? All right. And tonight we're talking about resurrecting dry bones. Oh man, we are going deep. If you know the story of the dry bones, listen, the question is, can the church still prosper? Is the church still alive? Can it still be activated? And what are the things that are happening in the church world? Man, we have a lot to talk about. A couple of us went down to Florida for Exponential, and so many of you all, you supported. Tonight, we have some amazing people who are down there with us, and some folks that I even know from being in California for what's called the Innovative Greenhouse. So there's so much stuff happening. So go ahead, share this again, and somebody share this on your pages. And without further ado, we're going to ask Brittany, be our producer, to go ahead and bring in our amazing panelists for the night. Oh, man, look at this amazing group of folks right here, right here.
What's up?
Yo, good to
What
see
up?
you guys. Now, listen, I want to say this. A lot of you all, I know we did not officially say this, and we should have put this in our emails and all that stuff. But just in case, you guys have been asking me, where is Harrison? I know y'all didn't take my Harrison off. I know y'all didn't get rid of Harrison. Well, listen, there's your little pretty boy right there in the middle. So you guys go ahead and get off of my back, okay?
Don't do me like that.
Your preacher pretty boy is right there in the middle, all right? So anybody
Preacher
who
pretty
thought
boy.
he could come
Hashtag preacher pretty boy. We'll take that for the
preacher
night.
pretty
We'll
boy.
take that.
So Harrison, why don't you go ahead and greet the people for a quick second, brother? Let them know how you're doing.
Man, good evening. Happy Thursday. It is a pleasure. I am hippopotamus happy. What is it? Peacock proud. Okay. Honeymoon. To be with y'all for real. This is good. It is good to see y'all's faces. I love y'all. Listen, it is always good to be missed. Know that I am not gone just because I'm gone. I was not called into the principal's office and kicked out. I want y'all to know it's some professional and some personal things that are going on. Just trying to handle life, man. Doing what we are promoting here, man. Doing life, trying to do it the right way. You know, trying to not just live right, but try to live well. So, man, we're gonna keep making some decisions. And listen, we coming on back. Y'all can see me a little bit more. Got you, Pastor Tay. I'm popcorning down to you.
Oh no. Yes. Everything's going well. As Reverend Ray was saying, some of the people you see here, two of the beautiful ladies up to my right, your left, um, we got the opportunity to meet in Florida. And when I say meet, man, we definitely have fun. You know, we had some burgers and hot dogs on the grill. Some of us got in the pool. That's another story for another day. But overall, we had a great time. And there's another guy who I don't know, but he looks cool. So he's part of the family. He's part of the squad. But we had a fantastic time. Had a fantastic time in the Lord. We learned a lot. We gained a lot of insight just on different techniques and different viewpoints of church planting. And we met a lot of amazing people, 3 of which you are seeing right now. So I must say, I am very much looking forward to this encounter. I don't even think I was supposed to be on this encounter, but when Ray told me who was going to be on, I was like, oh yeah. So, and Dominic, you're cool too.
Well, listen, he's passed it on to Dominic. Dominic, you guys don't always get a chance to see him because he's so diligent and work behind the scenes. Listen, I feel like we have a superstar in our presence whenever Dominic is on, because when he can make time for us, man, he is our director of art. So in case you've never seen him, even though he's plastered all over our social media, he is responsible for handling all of the artists. So if you're an artist and you want to be a part of the Well community or be featured with the Well community, that's the guy that you want to reach out to. Dominic, why don't you take a second and greet the people, man?
What's going on, everybody around the nation and the globe? My name is Dominic, also known as Nerd the Poet. Excuse me. And I'm the creative arts director for The Well. And I also was a part of the squad that made their presence known in Orlando. And it was a great experience. I've never seen a church planting conference, and just the information in the workshops was very eye-opening. It was up my alley as far as creative ways to evangelize and express being in the Holy Spirit and fellowshipping. So it was a really great chance to fellowship and meet some new people. And I want to thank you, Pastor Ray, for extending the invitation for me to come out. I got to bond with Harrison, with Brennan, Pastor Tay, and it was a really good time. For the limited time I had to be there because I did have to work, so I missed the hot dogs and hamburgers and the pool, unfortunately. But it was great for the time that I was there.
I want to let you know it was good. Ain't too thick, but it was good.
Yeah, so we have some amazing folks with us from across the nation. We're going to travel down south on the East Coast first. And foremost, I want to start with right above me on the screen, Minister Lexi Hernandez. Lexi, who is a part of the Growth Co. Lexi, why don't you just greet folks, tell them where you are, what you're doing, and all that good stuff. Couple seconds and let them know.
Hey, Williams, how's it going? My name is Lexi. I pastor Growth Co. in Mooresville, North Carolina is where I'm located. Growth Co. is kind of similar to this. We meet online a little bit too. It's a ministry specific for people in their 20s and 30s. I didn't grow up in the church, so I was just looking to create something that was a little bit more attractive for people who aren't interested in the church. Very similar to all of you here on the screen. So yeah, I'm doing good. I'm watching two crazy dogs right now, so I apologize if you hear them going ham in the background, but I'm really excited to be here, and I think we're going to have great conversation. Thanks for having me.
Sweet. And then next up, right beside her, is Piper Ramsey Sumner, who is the Fresh Expressions, the cultivator of Fresh Expressions United Methodist Church in Florida. She also has a couple other things, but Piper, you can share all of that. Why don't you greet the folks?
Yeah, what's up? So I'm so grateful that I've met Jason virtually, or Justin virtually. Justin, that's the story of your life, isn't it? Being called Jason. You got to change your last name. Sorry, that's what you got to do. Last or the first, you got to pick one. But I, got to meet you virtually, got to interview you for our podcast, and then everybody else got to meet in person so far. And so, yeah, I live in Tallahassee, Florida, and I am on the Fresh Expressions team for the Florida United Methodist Church. And Fresh Expressions are all about creating these new and experimental ways of being the church. And so it looks like what Lexi's doing with Growth Co. And it looks like The Well, and it looks like VR Church and all these things that we're probably going to be talking about tonight. And so I get to help people to take those ideas and those callings and the visions and the things that they have and turn them into reality. And I also have a couple little fresh expressions that I do myself. So I've got Tallahassee Brew Theology. We meet in breweries around Tallahassee, and we talk about different things related to religion and spirituality. Our next one is going to be May 4th, and we're going to talk about the theology of Star Wars. I'm really excited about that one.
What?
Yeah. If is there a theology of Star Wars? We'll find out. We're going to talk about it. And so I'm excited about that. And I've got a book club, and I've got a couple other things. So yeah, I stay busy out here in Florida.
Wow.
Yeah.
Listen,
thanks for inviting me.
Listen, I can't wait to have this conversation. Church in a brewery, that cannot be biblical. I'm just going to keep moving.
We'll see.
To my buddy, Justin over there, who is part of Mumsy Online, and the Living Room Church VR. Oh my gosh, Justin, talk a little bit to us, man.
Yeah, it is Justin, not Jason, but I also go by Payson, so it gets wild every once in a while. I am the online campus pastor for Mumsy Online, which is a community that has a fully on everything you do at an offline campus, we do on an online campus. That's kind of our MO. And then I also work with Living Room Church, which is a virtual reality fresh expression in Horizon Worlds. My gamer tag is Rev Kazon. If you ever look me up on that, that's on Monday nights at 8 p.m. with the Reverend Wild One Michael Beck. That's his VR handle is Wild One, in case you didn't know that. And also I'm working right now with Innovation Greenhouse and Path One to develop something called the Heat Map, which is a way for us to map innovation across the UMC and across the world so we can see all the cool things happening that are happening in our world. So that's me. I'm in Indiana, and it's windy outside. So if you see me go black, pray for me. You know, if I just drop off, it means we got some stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna make it work.
Sweet. Listen, it's dope. So glad you guys are here with us. I want to say hi to Susie Ellis, who's watching with us, one of our Wellians. Anthony Tillman watching with us, one of our Wellians. And Juwan, as I mentioned earlier, is on with us. Yo, what's up, Wellian family? Please make sure you tune in and share this post, because tonight is going to get super great and amazing. As you've already heard, folks are doing all types of ministry across the country. And for those who think that the church is dead, well, we're going to see if it's dead or alive tonight. Listen, let's talk a little bit about the exponential experience and the Innovators Greenhouse, which is where I met Justin. So I met Justin in California. I met Piper and Lexi, well, officially in person in Florida. Piper and I had done some work, I think, virtually before that. But yeah, let's talk just a little bit about that. You guys who helped support sent Harrison, you sent Tayron, you sent Dominic, and they too have had this experience. What was all of that about, and how did you all feel about those experiences, both the Innovators Greenhouse and Exponential? I think Justin shared a little bit about that, or Lexi did. Somebody did. I'll call Pastor Tay. Oh, go ahead, Justin. Yeah.
I also went to Exponential just last year, so I didn't go when y'all went. But if you want to meet up together next year, we can go together. But yeah, so I was at Innovation Greenhouse with Lexi and Ray out in Cali, and they kind of gathered us up together to put us in a room and talk about this question: is the church dead? You know, is the church dead? And we think it's not. So we got to have this experience of dreaming what could get out of the way of the church to let God do what God wants to do in the church. That innovation level of what is God already calling us to do? What is God bringing us to do? So yeah, that was my experience there. I wish I would have had the hot dogs and burgers though. I feel like that would have been a really cool experience. I'm not a pool guy, but I would have been there with you. I'm on the grill, you know what I'm saying? I got that dad energy. I can get the grill. So
you and Tayron need to get together for sure then.
Yeah.
I don't want to make him feel bad, you know.
Oh. Hey, Tay, I know that was your first time down at Exponential as well, man. What did you bring back from that, man? How was that experience for you?
Yeah, man. Two things I really noticed. One, I felt vindicated in what we are doing in the well, and things I've done individually as far as church planting. You know, some of the ideas and things talked about, some of the problems that people face, realizing that, you know, it's no different. You know, people from all around the country are dealing with the same things that we're dealing with, you know, that I'm dealing with in the DMV area. So in that sense, I really felt very vindicated in how I felt and why I was doing what I was doing. I also I enjoyed that people, I don't know, rightly or wrongly, as humble as I can say this, I enjoyed people asking me for how to do something that, you know what I mean? We had people who were in ministry for years who really didn't have, I don't want to say a clue, but didn't know how to approach ministry. And it was great to be able to step in and be like, well, this is what we do. This is how we do it. So that was an experience within itself. And then just learning, you know, I mean, spitballing ideas off of like-minded people, you know. Even when we had that breakfast and the idea came up of a barbershop ministry, I was like, that, you know, to this day, I'm still trying to figure out how I can make that happen. You know, it really planted a seed in me to really think about what does it look like for the well and the squad to do something at the barbershop or something in a tangible space outside of this virtual atmosphere that we're in, hence community pastor, right? So it really spoke to my shanana. It really encouraged me to really look at ministry in several different ways. Also, it made me feel good that I could help people, you know, find their niche or their calling, or where's God taking them. And lastly, I'll leave it with, you know, it was amazing to see that a lot of questions that were answered or were spoken was things like we actually did. You know, it made me feel good to be like, oh, you don't know how to do that, man. Well, we just do that. You know what I mean? To know that we had, as much as we had questions that were answered, we answered a lot of questions as well. So it was just amazing. And I met good people. You know, I met good people, politics. Side note, I actually got I got offered to do seminary for almost free. So that's blessings all around. You know, so it was a great experience. I pray, I would love to go back next year because it is something that is great. And them food trucks was banging. Yep.
Listen, and then Tay, if you can, like your face, like people see like half of your face and talk.
I got a big head, bro.
Yeah. My man. Listen,
It's
I
genetics.
want to hop on that because you talked about barbershop ministry. Lexi, what you're doing with Growth Co. is super amazing. You're mostly online. But you came into this, Lexi, as a person who had never done ministry before. You didn't really grow up in the church. You know, like I know we always talk about this calling to ministry, but like you started all of this, then you go down to Exponential, and you're like, you're a speaker at one of the largest, you know, at one of the largest church planting conferences across the country. What did that feel like? You know, as someone who doesn't have that same, I grew up in church story. What did that feel like for you?
It was very humbling, to say the least. It was a reminder that there's not always going to be people who agree with you and your ministry. But on the flip side of that, there is a huge group of people who are there to support you and encourage you and push you through. And it was humbling to be reminded that my issues that I struggle with within our ministry on a local level are all part of something bigger, like Tay was touching on. Like we all struggle with similar-ish things, or if we struggle with different things, then more than likely that network in that big family is going to be able to give you advice or give you tips or at least their experience on what they tried and it worked or it didn't work. So it was humbling and mind-blowing and honoring. Like I was so honored to be there, and same, I hope I get to go back.
Yeah. Dominic, your first time going to something like that, like you said, I think it was you who talked about this kind of before. But I think, as someone who hadn't been exposed to like ministry, I think that non-traditional, did you feel like Jesus was in the room, or were you like, oh my God, these people are crazy?
I would say they were crazy for Jesus. Which is great, you know, because it gives a sense that spirit is not excluded from lifestyle, right? And it was so interesting. I think one of the ministries there was a tattoo ministry, right? And we were like going over like tattoos and you know, they had stories and where I'm from, which is a traditional Baptist, that was not looked at as being okay, right? That was like something that was not of the Holy Spirit, not of God, and so on and so forth. And this was kind of like a sense of weightlessness. Like I don't always have to correct myself, or I don't always have to fit in a box because what I'm doing is not following these, you know, traditions. You get what I'm saying? So it was just so interesting and very eye opening, and it kind of was like an idea explosion. It's like, okay, well, if this is okay, then what about that? You know, and I got to do a poem as well. Pastor Ray brought me up for a poem, and that was the first time that someone has ever admitted to me that they cried after hearing one of my poems. And I was like, oh my God, someone actually listened to what it is that I was talking about, you know, and they felt it. And, you know, they wanted to bring it to their classes and workshops and stuff like that. So it opened doors. And like I said, it was a sense of weightlessness because it didn't feel like I had to keep things from my lifestyle away because they don't represent spirituality, because they don't represent holiness. you know, and I think that was the big takeaway. There's different ways to represent holiness, and it's not this one orthodox thing, but it is something that is living, something that is evolutionary, you know, something that is changing, and that's what we're talking about, changing with the times, evolving. If something doesn't evolve, it dies, right? So yeah, and then just being in the I think it was the First Baptist Church of Orlando. It's very massive campus it's like a community college, you know, and the different rooms and you know, the expos and things like that. They broke it down to science, like lights, like they were selling equipment. It was just it was a bit overwhelming, but it was also kind of interesting too. So I really did enjoy that.
I'm laughing at Brendan B, who said
That was I sweat. He said it was a crime. Ain't nobody grab your phone. I sweat.
Listen, Piper, you are the cultivator of fresh expressions down in Florida. What, I mean, you get to do this stuff all the time. How do you, you know, what is, when you go to events like that, what is your takeaway for all the folks who are always like, no, like church is dead, blah, blah, blah. Like, you live in a whole world where you get to see this stuff constantly and consistently. And so what is that? What's that? What do you go to things like that and take away? You know, do you breathe after? Like, what does that feel like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Exponential, I feel like what we were up to, I mean, we were kind of on our little island a little bit with our fresh expressions and with the United Methodists, and so I didn't get to kind of intermingle as much with what was going on the bigger kind of grander scale with that Exponential conference. But I mean, those kinds of things, you know, they're talking about get all of your funding, you need to go big, you know, like you know, Dominic was talking about with all this technology and make sure that you buy this program and that. And I think that kind of stuff, I think it's keeping the church from what I think the future of the church should be, which I think is much more grassroots. It's people who are using what they have at hand, their talents and things that they already know how to do, the spaces that they already love to be in, the people that they already hang out with, you know, and how do you create community outside of that, you know? Like Pastor Tay talking about doing stuff at like the barbershop. It's like barbershop, like, I mean, I'm a woman, so I don't hang out at barbershops. But from what I know, is that the environment is very in a cool barbershop that people will just hang out, and you might come and you might get your hair cut, and then you're there for another hour or so, just like talking to people. And people, like I have a pastor friend who talked about how they would end up talking about religion and about God and about these really cool, like really deep ideas while he was getting his hair cut. And so I think that is what I hope and see as like kind of the future of the church, like having the programs and kind of the big show and stuff is really cool for some people. But I think that especially, I think maybe Lexi could speak to that with this new generation of people that like, people are not looking as much for that. They're looking for authenticity. They're looking for things like this, where people are being real and they're able to share their art and their poetry and share their heart and what's going on in their lives. And that kind of brings all of that back together, you know, and back to what I think is the heart of what Christianity, you know, is all about, which is connecting with people and sharing our lives and sharing Jesus and the ways that we live, you know, and how we connect.
Yeah. But Harrison, you too, this was like I think one of your first ones, like in this way. What did that feel like when you left? Like, how were you feeling about what you had experienced down there?
To be honest, man, it was good. Exponential was fun. It was good to be able to. I think somebody already said, man. I think it was Tater said, man, just be around some people with some like-mindedness. Have an opportunity to be around some of those who are kind of where I am in this season of discerning. You know what I mean? Trying to really expand your mind outside of just what Harrison knows to be church, or what Harrison knows to be ministry, or what Harrison knows, or who Harrison knows to be God. You know, it definitely challenged some of my theology. In the few days that we were there, I left with so many more questions than I left with answers. But let me say, I really do appreciate, to Tay's point again. Hate to be that, oh yeah, and the piggyback, and yeah, me too, but for real, it was really good to be affirmed in, what happens here at the Well. That not only is it celebrated, but, people are trying to move to, this type of, or this form of church, this form of gathering, and this form of connecting. It was just interesting to see the various types of forms that people connect, from those who are in person, from those who are virtual, remote, from those who are still in the brick and mortar four walls of their church, to those who are in coffee shops, and those who are selling super farmers markets. There are just some really interesting ways that people connect. And it's like, I can't say Jesus is not in that. Like, I cannot in my right mind say Jesus is not in that. So I appreciate those moments where I'm like, maybe Jesus is that too. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah. So I love that. I'm glad you all got a chance to kind of share it. How do you see, because there are a lot of folks who are like, no, if you don't come on a first Sunday with your white on, right? If you don't have your suit and your tie on, if you're not in the building, right? Or if you come in the building, what's the difference between, what's the difference in the economy between traditional church and sort of this new contemporary church? And some people even go, oh, well, you've got to be conservative if you're in the traditional church, and you're progressive if you're in the new church. But I don't know that that's true either, right? I mean, how would you explain the difference to people who are like, well, they just want to do what they want to do. They just want to make church whatever they want to make church. That ain't God. How would you combat that?
I mean, for me and mine, I always equate it to the analogy of a car. If you look at a car from 2002 and a car from 1992, they're very different. They have the same function, but they're different. The style is different. What we use them for is different. So if I told somebody, I'm gonna give you a free car, you can have this 2002 or you can have this 92, which one are you going to pick, right? I just feel like the word is solid, but also our norms are different. Like we've evolved in critical thinking in different ways, right? We don't necessarily, even in pastors, I can think back, if a pastor say he had a master's degree in theology, like, wow, he's super smart. But like now I can go on Google and say, what year, what I mean? Any theological question I have, I can find on Google. So it's not enough that you know the word, but can you help me apply the word to my everyday life? And I think that's where kind of it falls short. So like if there's a traditional church, with traditional things with the old school hymns and stuff, a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 35-year-old, I don't want to hear that all the time. I don't mind. I like drums and acoustics, and I want to hear a Congo drum. I want to hear things that I can relate to in my personal life. In my personal life, music is not the same, right? We're not, don't push me, because that's not relevant anymore in music. We don't, we recognize how great that was, Grandmaster Flash, but people on Little Baby and Drake and Kendrick Lamar. So I need some Kendrick Lamar church in my life. I don't want Grandmaster Flash. So I think and I think people interpret that as you're changing the word. No, I'm changing the format in which it's presented. Right. So when we can realize that and live into that, I think that's when we are really having that we're really doing good to our congregation. When we don't do that, when we stick to this ragged road where there's only one way, you do a disservice to God, and you're doing a disservice to your congregation.
I love what Justin put. Hold on real quick, Harrison. Don't forget it. What Justin put down here. Christian innovation is a process of finding hope, transformation, and reconciliation through the Holy Spirit that reveals the gospel in the context of communities, practices, and beliefs. And then, of course, in connection with the United Methodist Church's missions. But I think for all people's, all missions. So I just thought that was a great moment. And I wanted to give a shout out to Brendan Booth, who would have been upset that you did not say in J. Cole Church as well. Tay.
Well, Notice I didn't say Jay-Z.
Yes,
Here we
sir.
go.
There's a reason for that.
Bring it back.
Harrison, go ahead, man. I'm not.
Y'all had to be in Florida to understand that reference, but nevertheless.
Yeah, we're gonna bring that back one of these days. That's gonna be a whole encounter.
And to be truthful, man, I really just wanted to emphasize something that you said. I think that's so important. And y'all hilarious. You said something, and I want to take your analogy a little further, that if you look at the car from 1992 to 2002, you're going to see some drastic differences. But if you look at the car from 2002 to 2022, just because I have a car that can park itself does not make it a car. Doesn't make it not a car. You know what I mean? So to the point of, what does church look like? Just because we're having church not in a physical building doesn't mean we're not having church. Just because we're having church in a place that doesn't have Jesus outside painted. And again, as a person that is a every Sunday church goer, I fully support brick and mortar church buildings, but I am also learning that is not the only way to get to God. That is not the only way. Now, we got to go certain ways, but that is not the only way. Yeah.
That was a good emphasis right there.
Yeah. I want to hear, because I feel like, Justin, you have a good experience of that, because I think that question of like, what is church? Like, how can we do church was very much, everybody had to answer that question when COVID hit, when we were like, we have to go, you can't meet in person anymore. And so the question definition of what church was it got flipped upside down. And that's where Jason, here I am again. Justin, that's where, Justin, your journey with that, like, with where you're at now with Mumsy Online kind of started,
Yeah. I love everything y'all are saying. I'm a big fan with the car analogy. I think one of the keys, though, we have to understand is there was a season when all knowledge about God was assumed to come from the church. Everybody assumed that was where all knowledge came about God. Now, I probably have more knowledge about God outside of my own scripture reading coming from TikTok, people on there who are influencing me, or YouTube, or all this knowledge is out there. The church was never meant to be this way to get knowledge out there. It's supposed to be a community that holds us and challenges us together. So if we have that community aspect, that we're going to be challenged, we're going to grow together, we're going to love others, and then come back and love each other and be loved by God, I think that changes the definition. But what you said earlier, Harrison, the idea that four walls of the church, 2020 exasperated that, right? And all of a sudden said, hey, it ain't no more walls. What you going to do now? And a lot of churches, they got through it. And then they instantly, as soon as they were allowed to come back in their buildings, they shut the cameras off, they let things go. And they walked away from the mission field. Where I think churches that are going to be really reaching out to the community, reaching out into people who need hope and seeing where God's already moving, are those who are saying, hey, church is a community. It's not about the building, which was a big catchphrase for about 6 months. And now we went right back to the buildings. But we're reaching back into what the church originally was, right? It was people gathering in houses, in vineyards. And, the way was gathering at the temple to the other gods and having a conversation there about what God is or isn't there, right? Paul talking about the Acropolis. Church was this opportunity for us to be challenged, for us to grow, for us to go deeper, to express, right? No one gave Mary permission to sing her song, and yet it's one of the greatest songs of all time, right? So we have to stop asking for permission to change and just follow the Spirit into change, and the church can either catch up or they can step out. But that's I think the future of what we're doing. But there's this tension, right? We can't just completely leave behind the inherited church because it's mama's church. It's daddy's church. It's the church mothers and church fathers. It's their church. It's something that they still care a lot about. So we can't just throw it in the trash can because that's where they experience God. So how do we say, hey, we understand this is where you are, this is where we are. In both spaces, we see God. So let's move forward. I think that's the future of the church.
Yeah. That's really good. I think somebody made a comment. I think it was Susie who made the comment. She said amen to that. Why not both Grandmaster Flash and Kendrick? why can't you use both? You have to know the past to improve the future. And I think that goes to your point, not leaving the traditional church behind, but sort of both and, if you will. Let me ask you all this question. We're talking about church, and Lexi, I'm gonna come back to you for this question, and then everybody, though, of course. Let me ask you this: if you weren't involved in this sort of new age or this evolution of church, would you be involved in worship at all? And if so, how?
Ooh.
So I was actually going to bring this up for the last question because I never attended a church, nor did I work in ministry until 2022. Or 2020, right in the middle of COVID. So I don't even have an experience of a church home until COVID happened. And I'll be real with you. There are some Sundays still, even working at the church, where I'm like, man, it's Sunday morning. I don't want to get up and go to this building for the service may only be an hour, but we have to set up, we have to tear down, we got to do this, that, and the other. And if Tony and I want to go on vacation, we got to be home by Saturday night, So for me, my experience with church and ministry so far has been, why can't we tie this into the life that we're already living instead of creating this almost separate experience by making the Sunday morning fit into our lives, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I really wanted to put that in there. I don't know church before COVID. And I feel like the way that we do it now, wherever you are, whatever you're interested in, Jesus can be there and you can experience Jesus, you can experience community. And nothing against the Sunday morning churches in the building, because my church still does that too. But there are times where I'm like, even as a pastor, I don't want to be there on Sunday morning. So I don't know. If I don't, then I'm sure not everybody else does either.
Yeah. Dominic, now you before the well, were you going to ministry frequently? What did that look like for you, and how has this sort of shifted your outlook on ministry?
I was kind of going to because I moved from Los Angeles to DC, so I didn't necessarily have a church home. I went to a couple places. Some were similar to the church back home, Antioch of Long Beach. Some were a little overwhelming and kind of hard to navigate. So I more so just found myself looking up sermons on YouTube and kind of just getting the message. And, because I guess I have what they call church hurt. And I'm a part of that church where, everybody's in your business and, you have to dress up.
Regular church.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to dress up for Easter Sunday,
Just say
100
church.
black men, 200 black women, so on and so forth. And it's like, it became more institutionalized than transformational. And, I'm an intellectual guy, hence the name Nerd Poet. So I want to know, like, what are these messages doing for me in my community, right? And it really was just about going to listen to the message and then afterwards doing whatever you wanted and then coming back and feeling bad about what you did Monday through Saturday, so I would still be searching, I would say, if this opportunity wasn't presented. I would probably still be looking for what it is that this is. So
Yeah. Piper, I have this question about this, because I know I'm going to get asked about it. So, and I know Piper, I know she's strong bone, so I can ask her these tough ones. But Piper, right, you talk about this brew ministry. Some people say, ministry on tap, if you will. What do you say? I'm sure there are folks that are like, church, beers, bar, aren't you just inviting people to sin? What is your, and you and let me just make sure it's clear, Piper, who has an MDiv, a master's of divinity, so she is very well learned, studied. Some people would say, what's your excuse, right? But what's your conversation when it comes to what people might ask about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it is it's one of those things where of course not everybody is comfortable and safe to be in a bar or a brewery. Folks that struggle with addiction and dependency on alcohol, like that might not be the best place, and it's understandable. And I think that that's kind of the nature of any group, is there are certain parts of it that might be inaccessible or that are not going to work for everybody. But the people that I'm reaching are the kind of people that they say, oh, a church and a bar, that kind of sounds like a church I would want to go to, as opposed to a church who, you know, might look down their noses at a person like me who drinks, you know. I think about a friend of mine who is a pastor at a small church in the country, and he learned about a guy that lived 2 houses over from the church, and he's somebody was like, oh yeah, he used to come to church, and then somebody told him he couldn't drink so much if he wanted to come to church on Sunday morning, so he stopped going. And so my friend, the pastor, went and grabbed, you know, a 6-pack of Natty Light or whatever, and went and sat down with him, and the guy had tears in his eyes, and he was like, I just thank you so much for coming, you know, like I just didn't think anybody cared about me, you know. And so it is one of those kind of things, you know. But the group that I have, we have folks that there's a guy that was part of our group until he moved, who'd been sober for 40 years, and he would drink cold brew or a soda, you know, and other folks who don't drink, who will be part of those groups. And so, I mean, it all depends on your outlook. I understand some people that is a hard line for them, but it's not for everybody. And I think it does help. You know, people I joke about that too. Like when I tell people, oh, I studied ministry, you know, and oh, I'm a Christian. You kind of see people sometimes, they're like, ooh, okay, I got to be careful around you, you know? So I might, I'll say a couple cuss words in front of them to make them comfortable and be like, okay, she's cool. I can be real with her, you know? So that's just, it's part of it.
Can I tell you guys, when I got back from Exponential, I had the most amazing moment. I was at this bar, and I know Sean's going to join us in a little bit, but I was at this bar with a friend of mine, Sean, and we had gone out, you know. I think both of us were just wanting to kind of like let our hair down a little bit. We were tired, and we sat at the bar, and so Sean was to my right, and beside Sean were two young ladies who were there as well, and then there was a younger gentleman to my left. I think you guys remember I had one of my nails had the Well logo on it, and I had my hoodie on, and we got into talking about the Well. Well, we just got to talking. Sean had asked them what they do, et cetera, and I think at the time they were like, "Well, yeah, we've shared everything about ourselves. What do y'all do?" And normally, right, I kind of respond with like, "Well, I have a nonprofit," just to kind of like not go into the whole church spiel, which I'm sure dozens of other pastors do as well. Something about being back from Exponential and just kind of feeling myself a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, I'm a pastor. And like you could see the whole expression just change. They were like, effing pastor. What? At a bar? Like with the Well with his nail and like with a hoodie? What kind of pastor are you? And we talked about the Well, and long story short, the bar closed. They were so intrigued, and we were so wrapped up in conversation. We left from there and went down the street to the Applebee's that was still open. Before the night had ended, we had gotten into testimonial stuff from them. They were sort of crying. We had hugs. We had a prayer. Somebody else came over to the table, one of the waiters, and was like, yo, I don't know who you guys are, but can I open up about I just lost my dad, and I don't know how to deal with grief. The young gentleman who was in his early 20s was like, you know, I don't go to church, but I've been thinking about it. But this is super cool, and I think I want to stay in touch. And it just opened this whole moment. So I think to your point, Piper, it's just great to see God when God moves in those areas that a lot of times people would be like restricted, right? Like I can't talk about God here, but it does open up the door for I think so many people to see God. Mm-hmm. Justin, I have a follow-up question for you, man. So I see some of the stuff you're typing, and we're talking about brute theology, and we're talking about Justin. What do you think, right, is a reverend? Yeah. What do you think? Do you think Jesus would approve of the evolution of church?
I think, can I answer it a different way?
Sure.
I think Jesus would disapprove of the tight definition we currently have for church.
Mm.
I think what we are doing in innovation and bringing up different aspects and different ways that the church is happening is first and foremost closer to Jesus' ministry than the traditional church has been in the last 50 years. Oftentimes, church has been a country club or a networking event or a place you had to go to because if you didn't, you're going to have a conversation with your parents when you get home. It's not been a community where we can deal with, like you said earlier, I don't know how to deal with grief. The best place to have a conversation about dealing with grief with Christians who have hope the resurrection. I mean, but we don't have those conversations. Instead, we've gotten to this sage mentality, right? Where we come on a Sunday morning at the time that's best fit in our schedule with the preferences of the music that we like. And we listen to a person who's supposed to be trained come and deliver an exciting speech about God. And we hope that that knowledge that we've now gained, we can somehow, some way implement it into our lives. And what we're saying here is, you don't have to come to us because Jesus didn't come. Like he didn't say you have to come to the temple to hear me. He went to them. So we're going to go to people. We're going to live alongside them. We're going to be the hands and feet of Jesus into the world and bring hope into an Applebee's at 2:00 in the morning. Right? We're going to bring hope into these situations. And I think what Piper is doing with Brew Theology is not a new concept. I think it's always been the case. I think more people have had their lives change and a relationship start with Jesus in bars and in nightclubs and in conversations around pool tables than they have in some of our churches. Because at that moment, you're able to lower your guard down and you're able to encounter the living God. So I think that's the key, is this understanding that it's not a new thing. It's a very old thing. It's a very relational thing. It's a very Jesus thing. And yeah, it's easier to go the other route, to kind of say, come and see the building. I serve in a traditional church where we have the hymn service and then the contemporary service. I do an online service midweek, but I'm a part of that. It pays my salary. I'm a big fan. Right? I love the community we have in our church. But oftentimes I say, man, we could be doing so much more to help people, to help them be transformed by the power of the Spirit, to help them learn and to grow and to be disciples of Jesus Christ. So that's just my lament as well.
Yeah. Harrison, what you think about this, man? I'm just curious about this whole Jesus and the evolution of church, man.
Honestly, I'm sitting here kind of like, I'm in a similar boat, Justin, if I'm honest. I serve in two churches, and I'll give part of my background. Originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I've been in the DMV now 9 years, come August. And I've been in church pretty much all of my life. Grew up in church, Pentecostal primarily. So I've seen a lot of different expressions, considering I've been a musician now for over 20 years. I played in churches for over 17 years now. It's crazy to give these numbers. It's like, whoa. But for 17 years, I've seen so many different contexts of what others consider church. And it has all been interesting. It has been, in some places, I don't think Jesus is in this. And other places, you're like, again, to exponential, it's like, wow, I'm not familiar with this, but it feels like Jesus would be really proud of this. I've seen those four walls and I've seen church done virtual. And I'm actually kind of in that space of doing both. I currently serve in two different churches on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and still have the opportunity to watch sermons throughout the week where I'm getting regularly fed from one or two churches that I just love the pastors. And it's like, I'm also learning that I don't just have to get fed from the same table. Now, that is to say, as a person and a traditional parishioner, that is also to say, when it comes to making life decisions, I'm not necessarily about to be calling up this pastor that's not my leader, somebody that doesn't know me, somebody that is not accountable to me or for me, right? So that's when I think we kind of have to know, what really is your lane? I know I'm not going to separate myself from what most would call the traditional church. Have a love for it. I promote it. You know what I mean? I am a part of it. But I will never stop seeking other ways to find God and to be in connection with others who find God in other ways that are different from the traditional church. So I think it is absolutely righteous for us to be in both places, because I think Jesus lives in both places. At the age of 12, we saw him teaching in the temple. From, what is that, 28, 30, 30, 33, you know what I'm saying? We see him pop up and he's just everywhere. You know what I mean? So I think that gives us at least a decent model to say we can safely consider him in both places.
Yeah.
I love what John.
Piggyback on what you just said.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I love everything you said. And I think a lot of times people think it's always a black and white thing, right? Because I'm doing non-traditional, I can't appreciate or I don't like traditional. Like, if you knew my theology, I'm very much more traditional than I am whatever you would call what liberal. I mean, I guess you would consider me progressive, but I'm very much moderate in my approach. But how I experience my relationship with God can differ. And I think people think you have to, if you go to conservative church, if you go to traditional church rather, it has to be this. And it doesn't always have to be. You can switch it up, and there's no problem with that. But I think when we're talking about even in this series of this discussion, when we talk about churches dead, the church is dead to only the people who can't realize that it's alive. You know what I mean? It might be dead to you because it's not how you are accustomed to church, but things evolve, and you know what I mean. There are places where you can have that traditional church, and you can go in the hymns and the organ, and then there are other places where it's going to be a drum set and a lead guitarist, and it's going to sound like you too. But either way, both those things are great. Both those things are spreading the word of God. It's just in a different package. Now if you're talking about changing the word of God, changing what's in scripture, now we got another problem. But if you're talking about spreading the word of God just in a different format to make it pleasing to somebody else, that's great. There is something to be said to be comfortable in a place where you're worshiping. There's no problem with finding comfort in the Lord. That comfort is not always with the building with the cross on top. That comfort, it could be in a tattoo parlor. It could be in a barbershop. It could be drinking a Natty Boh. I don't like Natty Boh, but so yeah.
Tay, I just want to know. I was gonna say Tay got bars, but Jawan beat me to it. Jawan said that's a bar, Tay. That's a bar. You might want to drop the mic. Go ahead, drop the mic.
Right.
Nerd. Lexi, were you about to say something? Did I cut you off?
I was, but go ahead. I can say that.
No, please go ahead. Go ahead.
I really like what you just said, and I feel like it's put how I've been feeling into words finally, because the traditional Sunday morning structure of church is not what makes me feel alive and what makes me feel close to God. What makes me feel close to God is experiencing conversation and getting to know other people and just being in community. That's how I feel closest to God. But that does not mean that I think people are wrong when they say that they feel close to God in the regular Sunday morning structure. I think people have always made us feel like we had to choose one or the other. You're either down with the Sunday morning or you're not. It's like, no, it's not this versus this. It's what makes you feel alive and how do you connect with God. Then I'm all for whatever that looks like for you. I mean, inbound, and you can't say you want to go do all types of drugs and stuff, and that's what makes you feel close to God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Ministry.
Yeah, it's not up to me to tell you that your way of feeling close to God is wrong. So it's not always an argument or a fight.
Jonathan Gutwin earlier says God's message has never changed. Man is the one who's decided what is and isn't church. And I love that comment. Nerd, I was about to come to you and ask you, how important is imagination in your spiritual walk?
Imagination is extremely important because I think that we get messages from the spiritual realm, right? And we are limited in the human experience by our five senses. right? So imagination is kind of like the pathway to getting what needs to come and be cultivated within reality, right? So dreams, prophecies. This is talked about in the Bible. Visions. It's extremely important because it's like the communication, like the language. For instance, and I don't know how this happened. This would have had to come from some type of spiritual realm or influence. But I had a dream about a concept for Toy Story 7 last night. I don't know where that came from.
Did you say Toy Story 7? I didn't know they even had that many.
There's a 5 and 6.
Yeah, and I had a dream about Toy Story 7. Like, I don't know where that came from, but just because I have a creative mind that is open to imagination, like that was able to enter and be cultivated, and there is an assignment there, and I have a choice to be obedient to that assignment to make sure that this comes to fruition. I'm like, yeah, that was just a silly dream, you know. Um, Me coming to the DMV area, I've never even seen what any of this looks like or what the location has been, on a map. You know what I'm saying? But I knew that there was another place that I needed to be. I imagined what it looked like. I visualized what it looked like, and the information just started coming to me, and it was leading me here. And then, it's kind of how I met Pastor Ray. Because I was out here, I didn't have any real connections, real friends, and I have a church home. So, I connected with him, and then he brought me to the conference that opened up other opportunities. So yeah, go back to my original comment. Imagination is the communication with spirit, which is outside and beyond of what we can um, contextualize in reality.
Yeah.
If I could also say, in addition to that, though, like as a minstrel, as a person that is musically inclined, I think imagination is something that I would say is crucial because it allows us to expand and to communicate in ways that our minds typically just don't process and think. Oftentimes when I'm playing on a Sunday, I'm creating as I'm going along. And man, one of my guys I was playing back in Memphis, his name is Devereaux Williams, big dog. Mentor, big brother. He said one time, he said, there are no mistakes in music. And it took me quite a while to sit with that statement and to reconcile. Like no, I heard some crap. I've heard some trash. Yo, we've all heard some trash music before. And he said, that's not what I mean. I never said there wasn't bad music. He said, but I said there are no mistakes in music. And that is to say that everything played can lead into something different. And it's almost like we talked about God ordering steps, right? It's literally the same thing. We think something bad has happened and now you off this plan. It's like, well, no, God accounted for your mistakes too. He knew you were going to do what you did. So he's already ordered your steps in a way that when you do whatever you're going to do, he already has the next thing coming. So I think imagination allows me to tie in principles of two completely seemingly unrelated things to be able to walk this walk out a little bit differently. So I think that creativity is.
Yeah. Okay. I got some thoughts. I think I have a little bit of a different view because, but very similar. I think that the future is open and that God is creating the future alongside us. Lexi, this book that we're reading together, talks about these ideas. But I think that that's what is so beautiful about, walking with God and about the creativity that God has given all of us, is that we are creating, and sometimes it doesn't sound very good, like playing the wrong notes, but it's still getting us in a direction, I think. And talking about innovation and creativity, that's what I think that the people like everybody here who are trying out and testing these new ways of being the church, that's what it looks like. It's like playing, playing together with a band on a Sunday morning, and you're like, I think I'm going to test out this new little something that I was working on. And it might sound really terrible. And you say, oh, okay, not going to do that. Same kind of thing is happening, I think, in these new kinds of doing ministry. And so you might try out something and nobody shows up. Like, so I have this book club and somebody was like, please, let's do it in person. And I was like, okay. I did it a couple times in person. Nobody showed up in person. And I said, I'm doing it online again. Sorry, guys, but we're going back, And so that was, I guess you could say, a failure, but it was a failure that taught me something and that I was able to learn from and continue. And I think God works in those things. God works in those things that we feel like are failures and helps us and gives us this creativity so that we can keep exploring and we can keep finding new ways of doing church. Because I mean, that was my other thought, was that the church has always been different every generation. There is no one definition of church. I mean, you can walk into a church that's right next door to another church on a Sunday morning, and it's going to look completely different. And there are definitions of what is the right way to do church. And so there is no solid definition. And I think that can sound kind of like a scary thing, but I think we can, if you lean into that discomfort, some really beautiful and creative and holy things can come out of that.
Piper, I love what you said. And so I'm going to lead into this next question that Susie has put in the chat. Justin, and I want to come to you because you actually answered in the chat. But I love this question. Now, this is what I love about our Wellians when they start really participating. But Susie says, what do you do when the more seasoned congregants feel they have a say-so on how much churches run because, no offense, the younger generation does not really tie to keep ministries going in the church? How do you bring them around to new suggestions on worship? To me, this is a huge problem. They need to hear what all of you are saying to get on board. Before you answer, Justin, I want to say this. Susie is actually a member of Gethsemane United Methodist, where I do some stuff musically. But I will say, Susie, I want to mention to you and remind you that when I went to the Table Church in D.C., it was a church run by all young adults. All young adults. There was only one person when I first started there. There was only one person over the age of 50. Everybody else was either 40 and under, and all of the leadership was 30 and under, 40 and under. But I want to say, to that point, the church thrived, and not just in its ministry, but also in its monetarily, it thrived. Every year, at the end of the year, there was a giving campaign to support we always pick some sort of missional project. Every year we raise about $20,000 to go towards some sort of missional outreach project. I think, though, that we have a problem in some of the more traditional ministries, because a lot of times the traditional ministries don't allow some of the young adults who are in better jobs or good jobs or making a living as an adults. They don't really allow them the leadership. So the young adults choose not to go to the more traditional churches because, to your point, a lot of the older folks don't want to embrace them or embrace that thought of them being in leadership. So I think a lot of times we see that because there are churches like the Table that are led almost totally by young adults that actually thrive. So I just think that's one of the things to be sort of thoughtful of, is that if the young adults are not showing up, why are they not showing up? Because there are very affluent young adults at times. It's just that sometimes, and to that point also, I think, just to reiterate, I think all the folks that are on the squad either tithe or give, right, when they have, and most of them are young adults as well. But Justin, go ahead. I know you shared some things.
Yeah, no, brother, you said it. And I think, and I said this in the chat also, Susie, vision. It all comes down to vision. I think one of the key elements that we have to recognize is trying to shift the worshiping style of the church doesn't go well. The idea of actually trying to shift it internally from, we were all hymnal, all, the faith we sing, and then we go to contemporary, whatever that is, doesn't work that often. Oftentimes what does work is something new. And starting something new that reaches into a new audience, new growth area. But it comes down to vision. If the church has a vision to see its people sing the same songs and to hear the same messages by the pastor until they die, and that's their vision, anything they do is going to be in that vision. If the church's vision is to bring more people into a relationship with the loving God and to cultivate those relationships, that's a change, and then something new can be birthed out of that. So really, it's preparing the soil to say, okay, this is the type of soil we need to achieve our vision. Every church, every online, offline, digital, whatever, every fresh expression has a vision of how God specifically equipped and prepared them to live out their faith into the world. I think our job as leaders is to help every expression of church find that unique reality, of that unique vision of who they are, and cultivate it. So what I would say is, and to Ray's point as well, when people start to see new people come in, money follows mission, money follows vision. If there is a mission and a vision of people being transformed by the power of the Holy Spirit, people go there because that's what they want to be a part of.
That's good.
If I could say practically, people also want to see where their money is going to. And so many churches are just not transparent, at least in my experience. I can't say all, in my experience. So many churches don't grow because people don't give, because they don't know where the money is going. They are just giving to this mystery pot, you know what I'm saying? And there's already the conspiracy theories that a lot of people truthfully don't buy into, that the church is just mishandling all the money that goes into. But it's also, do you know, when you are approached by those who believe that conspiracy or that theory that churches mishandle money, when they approach you with the question, well, where does your money go? Most church attendees, most tithers like myself, I really don't know, actually. you kind of dumbfounded. Most churches are not very transparent in how their dollars are spent. And I see thriving congregations, what I see there as a commonality, maybe I should phrase it that way, is that the church is not just transparent where the money goes, but the money is going back to the community. The money is going to programs. The money is going to funding young people to get education. The money is going to bettering not just the sanctuary and the place that they're gathering, but centers and focal points to, I think that was to Piper's point, to bringing Jesus and what we have in the sanctuary out into their homes and out into the places that they go from Monday to Saturday, because we are still the same people on Sunday that we are on Monday, that we are on Wednesday, that we are on Friday. You know what I'm saying? And we should be teaching people how to not just be priest, provider, protector on Sunday in church, but Sunday night when you leave church and you get home, you should definitely be a better person. And you should be able to do that everywhere, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. What is, so we're going to wrap up in just a few. So what is you all's advice to those who are wrestling with the call to either start a new faith expression or to become a part of a new faith expression? And Lexi, I'm going to start with you on that one, because I think I'd love to hear, because I'm telling you, it's amazing how out of nowhere, God just called and said, Lexi, start a new faith expression.
Yeah. I think my biggest piece of advice, and something that I've struggled with from the beginning, the middle, and currently, is it might be really difficult if you go into it thinking that your ministry is going to reach everybody. And I hope that does not come across poorly or in the wrong way. Of course, with us being specifically for people in their 20s and 30s, I thought we were going to have hundreds and thousands of people in their 20s and 30s on all ends of the spectrum. We do have people on all ends of the spectrum of faith and spirituality and their exploration of those. But there are some people who don't like what we do. They're not looking for what we do. And that's something as a leader that I've had to be okay with. And I was kind of getting that feeling stirring up in me, reading the comments about tithing in the older generations. Sometimes, and I feel like this could get a little sticky, I just wonder sometimes if there are some congregations that aren't supposed to have young adults in them. And if at some point that church dies, then that church dies. I feel like sometimes we go above and beyond trying to make our church attractive to everyone out there, and that can be more harmful than good sometimes. Why not have your niche group of people, your specific, like, know your audience, know who you're trying to reach, and be there for them. Don't stretch everything and everyone in the church so thin that you're just trying to reach everybody, because I feel like that's just a hard goal to obtain. Not saying God won't do it, because he might, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just feel like I had to say that. So
You're talking real. You're talking real. Talking real, Lexi. I will pause just to say this. I think, and to Susie, I know Gethsemane is it's my home church actually. Susie, I don't think you're in this context, but Lexi, to your point, we do not talk about the death of the lowercase c churches sometimes, and I think that is a thing. Folks don't want to know that they dying, but sometimes you got to come to grips. You got 10 members left out of your 1,000, and nobody's coming to the building. You don't want to change how you do service. Sometimes you got to let that thing go. Sometimes God is calling you out to a different place. He's like, look, you had your moment. And I don't know that we're aware of that. We like to acknowledge that, because who likes to acknowledge that my club, my thing, the thing I was a part of is finally saying goodbye. But that's not just church, that's agencies. That's all the way around. So no, Lexi, that's a great point to me. I think it's a great point.
See, but that's where we get so tied up. And I think here is where I think it gets so touchy, because that's the point where I think God stops getting glory, is when we start glorifying the building more than the actual experience that we there to have. You know what I'm saying? We're not coming to church to come to this physical building. We are coming to have an experience together that happens to be happening inside of this building. We have designated this place as our gathering for God together. We have blessed this place to make it sacred and to make it holy for the holiest of holies. We have made this place our gathering for him, our meeting place for heaven to touch earth. But that does not mean that this is the only place that heaven can touch earth. That to say, Jawan, and I think I gotta repeat that. Justin, you just said it. I thought it was wrong. I'm sorry. Not every church needs every demographic. Not every church needs every generation. Not every church is going to be multi-generational, multi-ethnic. But know what you're supposed to be. Know your mission. You said it. I got to repeat that. Know your mission. If you know your target audience as an organization, as a church, as a friend, as a spouse, as a whatever in this world, you're going to be fine. People say it all the time, and I think they take it in such a negative lane. I think it's such a great thing. Know your lane.
Know your lane.
If you are not a fast driver, stay out of the left lane. It's the principle is everywhere around us.
Yo, I love what Jawan just said. Justin, hold on to your thought. Jawan said, if you plant 100 seeds, you don't expect 100 plants to grow, but you tend the whole garden just the same. Come on, bars. Jawan, that's bars, brother. Justin, what were you about to
for the people in the back?
Okay.
Love that. I was just going to say real quick. Jesus said, "Let those who have ears to hear hear, and eyes to see." And I think there were people who heard Jesus speak, actually heard Jesus speak, and didn't have ears to hear. But then a couple of years down the road, they heard Peter speak at Pentecost, and then they had ears to hear. So your church trying to reach people that you're not supposed to be reaching could be hindering them from getting to the church they need to be at, where God wants to speak to them at in the new expression. So we don't have to be everything in every church. We don't have to have every ministry, every program, every people. Wow. We can just acknowledge God's given us these people. We love them. We grow them and let them go out and grow other people. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. Brendan B is funny. He says some churches recognize the end of their road and want to help make sure it doesn't end before they pass. So I love that, Brendan. My last question for tonight. Listen, y'all are talking good. I love this, man. I hate to let you guys go, but in your imagination, what does the future of both the church, lowercase c, and the body of believers, the uppercase c, look like in the context of the church? Can these dry bones live? Can the church be resuscitated from the image that it has? Can it be resurrected from this sort of death that people say about the church? Is there life for the church after, from this moment on?
I'll say a little something on that. So I think if there is life after death for the church, I don't think it will look like it does now. I think it will. Maybe it will look similarly, but I think at the heart of it, I think if the church truly wants to continue to hold true to the message of Jesus and for the Holy Spirit to show up, I think that means that love truly has to be the center of everything. And I think that means creating communities of belonging before believing, belonging upon arrival. And I think it means like radical authenticity and vulnerability. And I think it means the church being repentant for the ways that the church has failed itself and has failed its people. And I just think about how many people I know and love who have been rejected for who they are or for who they love or for the things that they say or think or the things that they've done. And that breaks my heart because those people who, the source sometimes of the shame that they feel is from the church, it should be the exact opposite. The church should be the place where people find freedom and hope and a place where they know that they are loved no matter what they do. And so I hope that if the church really wants to survive in this growing and changing world, I think those are the kind of things. I think love has to truly be the center and the motivation, and there has to be this radical authenticity that comes with it.
Yeah. Lexi, Justin, Harrison, how do you guys feel?
That was beautiful. I think Piper is just, I tell her every time I see her, she's so well spoken and she knows what she's talking about, and you can just tell she believes it. Like I always tell her my biggest compliment and my favorite thing about her is when she talks, it's almost matter of fact. Like I never feel like she's trying to convince me of something. Like she doesn't get emotional really about it. And that to me is so powerful because I've always just been the type of person where like, no, but you don't understand. I want you to like, I raise my voice, I get excited. And
Piper's poetic. She's very poetic.
Yes. It brings such peace. And like, I hear it, I remember it. And I love it. Even if I don't agree with it, I'm agreeing with it at the moment because yeah, everything you just said was beautiful and I completely agree.
Thank you.
I think, and I agree, Piper, but I have a different take as well. I think the church has to do what only the church is equipped to do. I think we for so long have tried to program our way to sanctification, and that's the word we use in Methodist Church, sanctification. We've tried to program our way to bringing love into the world. And I just don't think that's what the world is looking for right now. I think the church needs to have the opportunity for the people of the church to go and be the church in any space that they show up in. Right? That we need to be able to go to the barbershop. I go to Smart Style. I got easy hair. It's easy. I got to worry about it. But, to go to the barbershop and have that conversation, to go into any location and to be able to be the hands of Jesus. And I think what's going to start to happen in the next couple of years, and it already is now, is the decentralization of power in the church from the Sunday morning hierarchical gathering, right, to the church is the church throughout the week in different spaces and different places. And we'll still gather on Sundays because we need to be in community together. But I think it'll be more so of an opportunity to praise God for what God has done in this week and give us what we need to do to go and do the work of God next week. And I think that decentralization of power and decentralization of you have to come, and this is the only space you get to experience God. But instead of showing people you experience God out there, and then you bring it back into here where we praise God for it, I think that's the future.
Justin, I'm going to put
Love
a
that.
mark on this post just because that's a prophetic word, man. I'm going to come back to this next year and be like, oh, Justin spoke it on the well. Go ahead, Piper. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that's great. I think that's another thing is like the church has got to give up power and thinking that they have all the answers and that we need a pastor that has all the degrees to be the one that's in charge of making all these decisions. We got to flatten it out, horizontal, empower people.
Yeah. I said it in the chat, but I want to say it on here too. Something for me that I get really uncomfortable with that I see and notice in local churches is that whether we admit it or not, we always have an agenda for the people that walk through the door. We're trying to look at who can lead the next small group, who can do this, who's going to volunteer. We've got to start being okay with just providing a space for people to know that they're loved and they belong. If they come on Sundays or wherever we're meeting and that's all they do, we've got to start being okay with that and not expecting everyone to do XYZ for the church, because that's how we declare that they're showing their love for God, is by doing something for us. Sometimes we've just got to let that go, I think.
Oh, I agree. Minister Harrison, you over there, I feel like it's in you, man.
Hey, I'm gonna be honest. I've talked about this before. I think we see all throughout the Bible where the church has gone through these times of just doing what they want to do. Where we've seen the church go through times of, and even Old Testament, the children of Israel, relative there, they've gone through times of not quite getting it right. They've gone through times of genuinely trying to get it right and still kind of missing the mark. I think in present day Big C Church, we're seeing a mix of all three of those. We're seeing a mix of bodies of believers that are just kind of way off, just doing their own thing. We see some bodies of believers that are just missing the mark, but not necessarily, having this detrimental impact on people, but not quite getting it right. But then we see some people that are genuinely putting out their best foot forward, trying to reach people for God, that are maybe just having a little bit of a hard time doing it. So I think the future of the church is definitely going to look different, because it's also progressed over time from Genesis through Revelation. We've seen the church, and I'm kind of using this as a background because everything around us teaches us that history really does not just repeat itself, but it looks similar to how it used to. We've seen the church develop and progress. We've seen people develop and progress, and they come out relative, but they come out different and a little bit better. So I think that's kind of going to be my short answer, is that in the future, we're going to look different, but a little bit better. And oftentimes, man, particularly in the Old Testament, I'll finish here, man. You'll see the children of Israel often get into these 5 S's. They'll start off in sin. God will raise up some type of king in the land, and they'll be in slavery. At some point, you'll hear them cry out to God for help, and you'll see them in supplication. At some point, he's going to raise up a savior, right? We often see that with a David, right? And then you'll hear a period of silence. So there's typically a period of peace. And I think we see that just repeat in history. So I think that's what the future of the church is going to look like. I think it's going to be just another progression.
That's good. Listen, this has been an amazing, fruitful conversation. If you have, I have encountered the well, become the well, and ready to go and emerge and share the well tonight. I just want to give thanks to our whole panel tonight. I know that our director of arts had to hop off and Pastor Tate had to hop off. Thanks to Brennan B, who is producing tonight. He is, you all keep him in your prayers. He lost a family member, and so he's in our prayers. Man, Lexi, Piper, Justin, Indiana, Florida, North Carolina. We are so grateful to have had you all with us. Before we hop off, can you just share how people can stay in contact with you and how they might find your ministries and join and be a part of your ministries as well? Lexi, you want to start off? Oh, Justin, you go ahead. I think you unmuted.
So. Yeah. So you can find me on Mumsy Online, which is on Facebook. We're just trying to love people closer to God. And we have the Couch Ministry, which is on Wednesday nights. Also, if you're on Meta Horizon Worlds, check us out for VR or in Living Room Church in VR. That's Monday nights, 8 p.m. EST. You can find us all there chilling. And yeah, there's also this really cool thing coming out called heatmap.church, where you can find a lot of innovative ministries happening. I'm working with that, to check that out too.
Awesome, man. Feel free to drop that both in our YouTube chat and our Facebook chat. Piper, how can people stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so Fresh Expressions FL. So Fresh Expressions Florida, freshexpressionsfl.org if you want to go to our website. And if you use that contact page, it'll just go to me. So I can answer you there. If you're in Tallahassee, Tallahassee Brew Theology on Facebook and Instagram. Like I said, we're meeting on May the 4th, so you can come hang out with us there at Ology Midtown. And then I have an online book club called Theology Book Club, and we are meeting, May, I think, is it 16th? We're meeting with the author Thomas Ord, and he has a book called Open and Relational Theology that he wrote that is really cool, super accessible, really good read that's introducing a new approach to God that you might not have considered before. And I think it'll be a fun read and a good conversation. And if you don't agree with him, then you can come and you can argue with him, which I'm sure he would love to do as well. I'm all about some fun, lively debate. So yeah, that's what I'm up to. I'll post it in the chat, I think.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's what we do here at the Well. We always say you might not have the same theology, but we still love the same Jesus. So I love that. I love that notion. Lexi, how can people stay in touch with you, or how may they find your ministries?
So if you are interested in checking out Growth Co. on social media, we are at the Growth Co. Life on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I would also love if you follow my personal page, because I do post some pretty interesting stuff on my personal page too. I share a ton of music. I like a really strange genre, really. It's not even one genre, but I like a lot of strange music, and I post that often. So if you're interested, that'd be fun. My personal Instagram is lexi.j, just the letter J, .Hernandez. So yeah, give me a follow. Let's stay connected.
Yeah, and I will try to share this on all of our social media platforms as well. Minister Harrison Morrow, who I know is now going back on his sabbatical, man, but it was so good to have you back with us tonight for this. Any last words before you go back into your cave?
It's a pleasure.
Listen, first off, y'all not going to see another Tap In Tuesday without my face, okay? Hey,
look, you saying that a lot, brother.
I'm saying that
to the people, man.
So it's a promise. It is a promise. So, and already, tried to send it to you the other night, and technology, you know what, the devil, all right? But no, for real, Tuesday, we gonna be straight for that. It's good to see y'all. I love y'all, Williams. Listen, I'll be back soon.
Listen, thank you guys so much for being with us tonight. Of course, you can follow the Well. You all know at Encounter the Well on all of our social media handles, both Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. Follow us on all of our social media, and you can definitely follow, or subscribe there. If you'd like to know more about us, just in general, there's our website, which is www.encounterthewell. Everything is Encounter the Well, very branded. And if you like to give, if you like to sow, if you like to join us in the financial part of this ministry, please feel free to text to give at 84321, any dollar amount. If you want to give $1, if you want to give 50 cents, if you want to give $100, whatever God puts on your heart, you can give there, or again, go to our website, and the last tab is Give. All right. Listen, thanks again to Brendan B., who was on with us tonight, and to all of our panelists, Lexi, Piper, Justin, if you could stay on for just a few seconds once we close. Listen, you've heard the word of God in a very different way than traditional church. And so I just speak a blessing over everybody who's watching. If you love to know more about our God that we serve, our Jesus, and who he is to us, please don't hesitate to DM us or reach out to us in any way that you know how to reach out to us, and we will get back to you. Until then, we love y'all, and there's nothing you could do about it. Peace. Justin, Jawan, Susie, all those folks, all of our Williams, we love you all too, man. Peace out.